political messaging, how we sift through these very polarized messages that come from the different political players. And a few points that have been brought, quite strong ones. The media is really drawing a bad picture of itself by being fixated on mono issues. And then what say we get the list tomorrow? Then what? At least the opposition has said, NASA has said that they will have it given out after their a 3-day retreat, which should be ending April 19th. But why the fixation on this particular issue? Let's be honest, Sikolia, though, this would be a big scoop if we had it and we had the real list of the leaders as they have agreed. It would be a big scoop and a big win. But then what?
Now, you see, right now, what is affecting the Kenyan media, to my own point of view, is the issue of competition. We are in competition to outdo one another rather than to inform. That is what I think is ailing the Kenyan media. Like, I want to outdo, if we have a citizen reporter, I want to show him that I have sources. And he also wants to show me that he has sources. But again, the point as you raised, what are we looking at? Right now, what I kept on believing is that before NASA nominates the candidate to battle Uhuru Kenyatta, as the media will be looking at various candidates for NASA, Musalia Mudavadi, what does he stand for? You're telling Kenyans. Raila Odinga, what does he stand for? You're telling Kenyans. Because this nomination, let's say even if they go around the table, because right now they are doing scenarios of how they will pick the candidate. And what about if the delegates are given that opportunity to say, let's choose? Have you given this, as a media, have you given those delegates who don't know Raila Odinga, who don't know Mudavadi very well, who don't know Kalonzo very well, who don't know like Wetangula very well, a sneak peek of who they represent and what they value, like for example, and what they bring on the table? Because right now, look at it. Even the Jubilee Brigade, whenever they go and whenever they want to attack the NASA coalition, what are they saying? Those guys don't have anything to do for Kenyans. But as a Kenyan media, have we also like told, because we are supposed to be in the middle, have we told Kenyans that this is what Raila stands for? This is what, if Raila is the candidate, this is what he stands for as opposed to Uhuru Kenyatta. This Mudavadi stands for as opposed to Uhuru Kenyatta. Because right now, the Jubilee Brigade are free to say like, these guys even don't know what they want to do for Kenya.
They don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And something else that came up in terms of nominations. The nominations, at least the races begin. The heat is on from Thursday, the 13th, I believe, in some constituencies. And you mentioned semantics, that probably what happened with ODM was semantics and it wasn't direct nominations. But in this particular case, call it as it is, another issue that has come up is the issue of tallying and whether the opposition is in its best right or is in order to have a separate tallying center that they would have the results come out. The messaging that is being shaped out there is that the opposition wants to have its own place, its own results, and not the IEBC's. But at least how you've seen it play out, what's the management of this particular message?
Well, you've got to even look at how it is being reported. And I've got to laud the Kenyan media for how they're reporting this issue. You can tell that even within the newsrooms, everyone is reporting this story with 2007, 2008 in mind, and seeing the danger of parallel messaging around announcement of results. And you can even see the caution that the newsrooms are taking as they report this issue. Because when you think about it, Mark, if I, my relatives and everyone else is allowed to announce results and declare them, we are going to lead this country into anarchy. When you decide that you're going to run a parallel tallying center, who is watching over you? Who is making sure that what you're announcing is true? Mm-hmm. That's why we are saying that there are institutions in this country that are mandated by law, that are formed even by our own tax, the tax that we are paying as taxpayers, to carry out the duty of counting, tallying, announcing and declaring the results to make sure that we don't get up in a situation where Ole Kina decides to declare himself the elected senator, while we know that maybe he has not been elected. But this is the situation, Mark. There's a whole there's a whole degree to which we can view this issue. One is where we have the Tanzanian situation, where the Electoral Commission says that there will only be one person announcing this election, and that is there is even no provisional results, like, as you saw in Tanzania. The other extreme is where everyone and anyone is allowed to declare results. But right there in the middle looks like where we are headed as a country, where it was, NASA and IEBC got into a room, and there was a very clear agreement that yes, you can go on and do whatever tallying you're doing, but you're not mandated by law to announce results.
Right.
I think, let me just respond to that. I think we now have an authority. There was a court decision recently that stipulated how results will be announced. What NASA is saying is that in every polling station, whatever results will be announced, our agents will scan that and send it to our central tallying center. Jubilee...
Is this a parallel
I mean,
center?
Jubilee, it is not parallel. You consider it parallel, I mean, it's just a matter of
that's some of the
terminologies.
messaging that is going on.
And I think it comes down to what you're saying about the media. How is the media portraying the information out there? What perception are they creating? By
Did the problem start
Now,
with the media?
second
Yeah,
thing-
did it start with the
question.
media?
No, I think
That's a good
the
place.
problem
I'll
starts
give you a
with the
chance.
media.
As a good journalist, you should try to understand and try to deduce the meaning of what I'm saying. If I'm saying I will tabulate my results and I'll compare them. If you call it parallel, so be it.
Now listen,
You know?
the problem where it started was the initial announcement of that decision. I remember it was the ODM party leader, Raila Odinga. He was in Nyanza, and he said in Kiswahili, IEBC wakitangaza,
Sorry.
sisi pia tunatangaza.
But I will defend him.
That
I will
was
defend him because what he's saying is this: we've got a history of elections being stolen in this country. So this time around, we are saying they will not be stolen.
Right.
Actually,
when
when
announces their
now-
result, we'll
now
also
listen,
announce ours.
Now listen, after NASA met with IEBC, you remember the clarification that came out? It was very clear now. It wasn't about declaring results. Actually, when it came out, it was monitoring results. Like
Right.
checking, fact checking. Are the results coming from the constituency same as the results being announced at Bomas?
Yeah.
But
What
I
do you
think-
see?
I
What do you
think
see?
the
Let's give
president-
Dorothy a chance here because it's,
Personally, I think that the IEBC and its predecessors have let this country down, and that is why the Kriegler Commission said that we shall never know after the post-election violence who between Kibaki and Raila won the election. That is in black and white.
Okay.
Yeah, and that means that NASA has cause to be jittery. Will history repeat
Very true,
itself?
very true.
But having said so, I would then go ahead and say, why does it have to be NASA having its own tallying? Why don't we have a third independent source of results? You know, somebody who can monitor, because we know that the government, the incumbent government, has the machinery to do anything they want. I have no facts, but I know that they do have the machinery and they can do what they like. So if the IEBC is malleable, is buyable, you know, then anything can happen. But if we have a third alternative, I don't want to say it's either IEBC or NASA, I want a third force, somebody independent.
Right.
And I think that is where observers come in, but I don't know how we can have a third tallying so that if that one can then either corroborate the NASA result or the Jubilee result.
I think we
Just
already have
throw
a
out
third.
everything.
I think we already have a third alternative, which is the IEBC. which has completely let people down. In fact, today,
So what's the first?
Let me tell you, the first is Jubilee has its own tallying. They had it in the last election. ODM has its own tallying. And then now the third one, which is Jubilee.
Okay,
which
then
is the,
probably then I
you know,
need the fourth.
Maybe the fourth.
A neutral,
but I think
fourth.
I want to agree with you that IEBC has really let down this country. Because when they cannot communicate effectively, then it leaves people wondering, what are we doing? Yesterday, there was a message out in the papers that says, actually in today's paper, that so many political parties will be barred from the election because they did not submit in their list on time. Now, you go back to the political parties, they said, no, we did. You asked us to submit it in this format, we did. So I think when it comes down to the issue of communication, IEBC and all these political parties must have a desk or a media briefing session so that they can be able to share that information with the public.
The packaging was,
right.
Ole Kina, the packaging is the message that was sent by NASA. How was it sent? That is what brought about the whole debate. The message was not sent right. That's a fact. That listen, when the message came out that announcing results, declaring results, the law is very clear. You cannot change it. Declaring results is IBC. But what NASA meant was to monitor. And actually that is what political parties, when you look at even, when you look at the US elections, political parties have mechanisms of monitoring results. They have centers, like you had about the Republican. They had a center where they were monitoring results that they were trickling in. Are they the correct results from the ground, or have they been altered?
And the media,
again,
and the media as well.
Declare.
And the media as well.
The point is you cannot declare.
Let me tell you.
The messaging.
You've had your bit.
So the messaging was not correct.
Talking about the messaging, and I think Dorothy raised a very, very important point here. She said, what should the media be doing? Today, I read in the paper that I think it was in the Daily Nation actually, someone said Raila will declare himself in Tanzania. Why should the media carry such a story out there?
My point is
that's a very good point.
My point
a very
was
good
this,
point.
and it's premised on what Madam Dorothy is saying. I've got to tell you that, first of all, we've got to be very honest with this country about some of these things that we beam out there. The current IBC, as is formed, cannot carry the burden of ECK. We all know the journey we have walked since ECK. From ECK to the double IEBC to the IEBC as it conducted the 2013 elections, and now the current IEBC. Totally different, worlds apart. And in fact, if there is any side of the divide that has had their way in the formation of the current IEBC, it's got to be NASA.
No, not
you
true.
remember the Monday and Thursday protests that led to the dissolution of the commissioners in IEBC to form it as it is currently constituted. Now, the truth of the matter is this.
You can jump in. Let her interject.
My point is this. Even if IEBC exists as is, that third force that is being searched for exists. And let me tell you, we are not going to conduct an election in 2017 in Kenya without the world observing us.
Okay,
and
that's
they
the
have
third
an
force you
interest
speak
here. And these observers are reputable institutions. We know all these bodies that reign on Kenya when we're carrying out our elections.
So that's the third force you say.
We need to be objective. Objectivity is absolutely important. If it was completely a NASA agenda, how come then that both groups agreed on chasing the immediate last...
Everyone agreed. Actually, everyone agreed.
But remember,
everybody, the churches, the whatever, civil society, they wanted it to go.
Then
because it's a chicken game.
If we are going into a race, and we've agreed that this is going to be the referee, and as you're saying, Madam Dorothy, to your point, if both sides agreed on a referee, then let's go into this election knowing that IEBC is mandated by law to oversee this election, and then leave it at the point where if NASA is feeling a need to monitor, they have every right to monitor the election. And so does Jubilee. So we cannot take away the right of IEBC by law to
My
be
question
the
is,
only sole body that is mandated to declare results.
KJ,
As we wrap up,
where do we leave some of the points that were raised by NASA? That it wasn't just about removing the commissioners. It wasn't just about removing Isaac Hassan and his team. It was about an entire cleaning of the commission.
Yes.
You remember they raised about the ICT department.
Yes.
They had a point there. They insisted that actually the ICT department had been used to alter data.
Absolutely.
The question that they are still raising, even up to now, their memoranda with the IBC, is that actually there are not much changes at the ICT department where they think that IEBC collaborated. I used the word think, that IEBC collaborated with Jubilee in 2013.
So there's a bigger picture here. There's a bigger picture.
To me.
Yeah.
And I've got a response to it. I told you that in every election cycle, every side of the divide has a narrative that they carry through. Until we got to this point, we have been able to observe a narrative that NASA was bringing. And the narrative was that it is going to be impossible to carry out an election on August the 8th.
That's not
and
true.
place every hurdle possible
Not true.
to ensure that elections don't happen in August, and specifically not on the 8th. And we have seen those efforts coming over and over again to a point where even what you're talking about is an effort into bringing this country into a constitutional crisis where an election does not happen, and ultimately a discussion is had as to whether we are going to have an Usumkate or a caretaker government or whatever happens. But that wasn't my point. My point was this: even as we wrap up this debate, Mark, we've got to ask ourselves the question that the person in the newsroom, the challenges that the person in the newsroom is facing. And I've got to tell you this, that the moralization that we are hearing, even from the newsrooms, we've got to ask ourselves whether the media houses are able to ride on the moral high horse to moralize this country, where we know what is happening even within newsrooms. We've seen the challenges that are coming up with these issues that even Dorothy is raising. We've seen ethnicity within media houses playing out even into the headlines. We've seen headlines for sale. We've seen corruption within media houses. So even as the media is trying to remove the speck in the political players' eye, they've got to see the forest that is in their eyes too.
I think just to wind up a little bit, I want to focus a little bit on the issue of IEBC. And I think the issues we are raising is that, one, we've got a system whereby even the current IEBC is not willing to accept the mistakes. We go back to the issue of voter registration. And NASA has been very categorical. It has been very factual in showing what IEBC is not showing the public. The reason of, we had the issue of double registration, whereby, single digits were used to register a lot of people. Then it begs the question, say, if you go to a bank now and open a bank account, your ID number is entered into this integral system that we have in the country that should be able to check whether your ID has been used to open another bank account. Why is it so difficult for us to be able to come up with a system that is connected with the integral system, the population integral system?
And let's hope KPMG will deal with these issues.
And then just to finalize, I think Jubilee is very frustrated. They're frustrated because NASA has remained tight-lipped. They said, we will name our flag bearer when we want to do that. Number two, going back to what Enock was asking earlier on, is that why should we not be talking to individual flag bearers or proposed flag bearers? I think, Enock, what is happening right now with the committee, and I think the media houses have got to really narrow that down into that. These committees have been given the task to be able to look at how we're going to run this country. So it is not going to be what Weta or what Raila or what Kalonzo wants to do. It is going to be a collective effort.
But Mark, it's very, very clear that the only agenda NASA has to communicate is the flag bearer.
No.
So name the flag bearer, then what? And that was a question that was asked.
The press and Jubilee.
You're playing your cards close. It's
Yeah.
a strategy, I would imagine, so no one can hold it against them. Unless they're holding something constitutionally, they're holding constitution ransom in terms of not being able to move on.
Let me.
I'll give you the second last word.
Let me say something. The fourth estate is extremely powerful.
Right.
Very true.
And it actually has the power to lock out both Jubilee and NASA.
Because they probably will never agree and read from the same
they
script.
can simply do it by showing some of the things that are happening in the country right now. I come from a retreat whose agenda will remain close to my heart, where people are dying. And of course, we have seen clips on telly already. People are dying, livestock is dying.
Masai.
And the situation is so bad that if we had credible civic education, and the media can actually be part of this, they can say, so what has the government done? And what will NASA do? Because as we all know, most of the stalwarts in NASA were in government before, as Jubilee loves to say. But let us not go there.
And some who are in Jubilee were also in opposition.
So, if we had a clean slate, and I don't know if it's too late.
But that's not going to happen.
A clean slate.
Let us just be honest.
A clean slate, let her finish her point.
But let me voice my frustration, you know.
If you had
that
a clean
things
slate
are happening which are immoral. Children are dying, livestock is dying, whole livelihoods are being swept away, and people are fighting over non-issues.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
A few seconds.
My last point is when we look at the media versus social media, that is an issue I want to talk about. It's becoming so bad because social media is the one that propagators or propagandas are using to portray another party in a manner probably that is not true.
You've heard of the
I've
36
seen
bloggers?
on both sides, Jubilee has, ODM has, and they have, they call them bloggers, serious guys.
Yes.
They can get a clip and run with it, and you will see hashtags. But again, are we media playing into their
Game.
Their game? I've seen a number of times us playing into their game. The question is, how do we develop a third eye? That yes, this is what we are seeing on social media, but as a media, we need to interrogate, is it true or is it propaganda?
And it is a space you can't run away from in this world today. And
So we're getting the third eye.
I'm thinking, you know, Dorothy says that mainstream media is very powerful. Now, here's the news.
Right.
Alternative media is proving to be more influential even. So we need to also have a discussion about how then do we carry these really pressing agendas. Is it drought? Is it corruption? Is it moral corruption? Is it the discussion about values? Can it be cascaded to the next generation through social media? And is that a possibility?
I have to go, but it was his last word and he needs to finish.
Again,
Is it wishful thinking?
Finish,
as you
Sikolia.
have just talked about, you see, the issue is social media is pushing these hashtags, is pushing these agendas. But as Dorothy says, the fourth estate, which is the mainstream media, is very powerful. People still come to us. I've seen so many times. People will talk on the hashtags and even Rusha Maneno insults and what and what.
Right.
But they will still come to the mainstream media for confirmation.
All right.
So are we confirming or are we...
2 seconds.
Right.
I think just to add on what you're saying, it goes down to what I told you. I think the fourth estate should not propagate the social media gossip.
All right.
I think you should fact check, and I think if there's anything you need to ask the NASA summit, pick up the phone and call.
True.
Don't just go there and report.
You snuck that NASA comment in your last comment. It was about social media. But anyway, thank you, Enock Sikolia, our political reporter. And of course, your stories will continue airing as especially we get busier going closer to August 8th. And thank you, KJ, former colleague here, now running for Dagoretti South. All the best to you. And Bwana Ledama Ole Kina, of course, as you run for Senate in Narok, all the best to you. And Madam Dorothy Kweyu. I always say Kweyu like a Ugandan or a Kamba. But thank you very much for the wisdom. And actually, you've put us in line in some of the discussions here. Thank you very much.